Hey guys, it's Izzy. Welcome back to my channel. It has been a very long time since I last posted a video, almost 5 months, and that's because I've been travelling. I went all around Southeast Asia for 4.5 months and I've just got back. I'm so happy to be back. I hope you guys didn't think I forgot about you, because I absolutely did not. I thought the first video to launch my return could be a reading wrap up of all the books I read whilst travelling. I read 17 books while travelling, so it's going to be a bit of a rapid fire wrap up, but I thought this would be the best way to catch up. I have a cup of tea in my mug as usual and some chocolate which my boyfriend got me as a returning gift. So I thought we'd just sit back and have a good chit chat and catch up on what I've been reading. The first book I read this year was Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home by Jessa Hastings. I'd read the first 2 books in the Magnolia Park series at the end of last year and I really enjoyed them, and I was really excited to get back to this series. I loved this book. I rated it 5 stars. It follows a group of rich, high society, young adults. Mainly our main character are FMC, Magnolia, and her very on and off boyfriend, BJ. In the series it goes Magnolia Parks, Daisy hates, Magnolia Parks, Daisy hates, Magnolia Parks. The previous book in the Magnolia Parks section was the first book, and at the end of the first book you find out who the girl that BJ originally cheated on Magnolia Parks with, who she was, and that's the big reveal. In book 3, but like the second part of Magnolia's story, you are following Magnolia navigating their relationship. She completely freaked out and she runs away to New York, and then she comes back to London, and you're watching them navigate this development in their relationship, and it is just such a fun read. I really like Magnolia, thoroughly enjoyed it. Spoiler alert quickly. In this book you get Magnolia and Julian, and I absolutely loved them as, I don't know if they really count as a couple because it's not, they never date, but I loved them as a couple. I kind of more than I loved her and BJ. I was a bit sad when they eventually ended. At the end of the book there is a huge twist I did not see coming. I doubt anyone did. So you are left on a massive cliffhanger. It's quite an easy, fun, entertaining read. There's always something going on, there's always a bit of drama. It's not boring, it's fast paced. I really enjoyed it. That was a 5-star read. Delicious. The second book I read was The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I read this because at the time the movie had just come out. I couldn't watch the movie, but I thought I would read the book. I'd heard of this book before. Our main character is hired as a maid for this rich family. Everything is not as it seems with this family, and our main character slowly unravels what's going on. So I rated it a 2.5 stars. I didn't love it. It was a bit predictable. I thought I was expecting bigger things considering I'd heard people rave about it. I don't think thriller mystery books ever really do it for me. Like, I enjoy them, they're a good palate cleanser, but I never find myself thinking back on them and being impressed with the plot twist. It always kind of feels a bit underwhelming after I finished the book. Then I returned back to the Magnolia Parks universe and read Daisy Hates, The Great Undoing. I rated this a 5-star as well. Really enjoyed it. This was all about, I'm kind of struggling to remember the plot of book 4. I really enjoyed it as well. I really like the way that Daisy's book is written. There's lots of like kind of footnotes. There's lots of footnotes, and you're like following her. It's kind of her thoughts, and they're really funny. It's like a nice inner monologue, which I enjoyed. I thought that was quite a fun touch. It's obviously it's a different vibe because Julian, Daisy's brother, is a crime lord, and it's quite funny. It's a very entertaining read. I can't remember if it's book 4 or book 5 where you get Julian's perspective on the scenes with Magnolia from book 3. One of them you get Julian's perspective. I think it might be book 4, and they're just heartbreaking. I'm not over her and Julian. I really, really love them. I can't remember how... Oh my god, yes, I do remember how this book ends. Oh my god, of course. The endings of book 3 and book 4 don't actually match up exactly. Book 4 ends a bit before book 5 does. I was waiting for like the endings to line up, but they don't exactly. They kind of end like a small portion before book 3 does. There's not much more to say than I said for book 3, but this whole universe is just so fun. I really like the contrast of sort of the crime lord world. Daisy kind of doesn't really want anything to do it. It's quite like sarcastic, quite funny. And then Magnolia's world is all glitter balls and like sparkles and diamonds. Like, it's really glamorous. It's a nice contrast. Then I went straight into Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, which I rated 4.5 stars. This follows the aftermath of the plot twist that we experienced at the end of book 3. Can't say much without ruining what the plot twist is. I didn't love this one as much for 2 reasons. One, I don't want to say too much, but it was quite a mellow book. The vibe was a bit lower, which is fine. It's just quite different to the vibes of the other book, and I think I prefer, due to the nature of the stories, I prefer a bit more of a light-hearted storyline. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did love this book still. I cried. I really, really liked the ending specifically, but also just a chunk before when they're travelling Southeast Asia is all I'll say. Or they're doing like the bucket list. I really like that, especially on Mount Ijen, if you know what part I'm on about. And the other thing I didn't like is that I didn't find Magnolia is very snobby. I think everyone would agree with that, and she is very likeable despite it. Like, it's funny, it's not too deep. I did just find her a tad too snobby in book 5. It was just like a bit like, oh, shut up, do you know what I mean? It made her a bit unlikable. I will say there better be a book 6 coming out, because there are so many points of this story where sort of Julian, Daisy, Christian, what's Christian's brother called? They're very absent, like noticeably absent from this book, and it's pointed out that they're absent from this book. So best believe we're getting a book 6 to explain their absences. Sadly, I do think this is the end of Magnolia and BJ's timeline story. It wraps up very nicely, and it leaves room for the 6th book, I hope, with Daisy and Christian. That was a solid start to the year, finishing that series. Really, really enjoyed that. Then I read The Silver Flame by Paige Nicole. I gave this a 3.75 stars. I found out about this book from Book Talk. I was scrolling through and I came across Paige Nicole's TikTok, and she was advertising the book really well, and it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I thought I would just pick it up. And I was really craving a fantasy at this point. Obviously, I'm 4 books into the year and I haven't read a fantasy, and I am an avid fantasy reader, so I thought I would give this one a go. And I did enjoy it. The plot doesn't stick with me. It wasn't a standout read, but it was enjoyable. I think this was the author's first book, so it's really impressive. It follows like a tournament. She's brought into this palace basically, and there's a romance subplot with the prince. Who would have guessed? She discovers that she has more relevance than she thought she did. It ticked all the boxes for me in the fantasy that I needed at the time. It was so nice to be back in a world with magic and kingdoms and princes and balls and all of those things. It hit the mark aesthetically, and it gave me the feeling that I was craving. It was, yeah, as I say, it was the read for the moment, but it wasn't a standout book. I couldn't really tell you what the plot was. I don't really remember. It didn't stick with me, but it did what it needed to do. Next, I read The Woman by Kristen Hannah, and this was a 4.5 stars. This is my second Kristen Hannah book. I definitely want to read more of her. I have a very strong feeling she might become one of my favourite authors. I read The Nightingale by her early last year, and I have been looking forward to my next read. And this I put on my 26 books I want to read in 2026 video, and I stumbled across it in a book exchange of one of the hostels I was staying at, and I couldn't pass it by. I was like, I have to. It was a sign, and I found it about a week before we went to Vietnam. The plot of this book, it follows our main character, Frankie, I think she's called, and she signs up to go be a nurse in the Vietnam War after her brother, who's kind of her light, her role model, goes to serve as a soldier. It just follows the hidden war and the hidden stories of the women that fought in Vietnam. You don't really hear them spoken about, and it was a big plot point of the story was the fact that nobody believed there were women in Vietnam, and they didn't really care to hear the stories. They didn't sympathise. They didn't want to know, because obviously the Vietnam War was quite an embarrassment for America. Even though the soldiers, the veterans, they were celebrated, but the women very much weren't. So it was a really emotionally charged book. It was a really important story to tell. And as I say, I read it while I was in Vietnam, which just made it 10 times more impactful. There were lots of places named in this book that I'd been to, which I just found so cool, especially the Caravel Hotel. My godfather had told me I had to go there for a drink. He told me that that was where the news reporters had reported on the war from. But it's mentioned like a good couple times in this book, and I just thought that's so cool, so niche. I really felt quite in the know reading it and knowing the places they were talking about. I really had wanted to read this book in Vietnam. I didn't think I was going to be able to because I didn't have the book, it wasn't on Kindle Unlimited, and then I found it. So that was just a real sign. I really loved this book. I sobbed at the end. Me and my friend were in the room, and I knew she'd laugh if she saw me crying, so I was trying to like not sniff, because I knew the sniff would give me away like while I was sobbing, and she caught me. It was honestly everything and more. I don't really know why I didn't rate it a 5 stars. I think it just didn't quite have that 5-star feeling. It's really heartbreaking, it's really sad, it's a bloody roller coaster of emotions, let me tell you that much, with the way the story goes love-wise. Well, I cannot wait to read more Kristen Hannah books. Definitely on my radar for summer is reading more of her books. Oh my gosh. Change of pace here. The next book I read was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I've been saying for the longest time that I wanted to read classics. About the past 2 years, I've had the measly goal of reading 4 classics a year. That's all. And I haven't. Once again, I read this when the movie was coming out. I do get quite motivated when there's a movie coming out. I'm not a strict follower that you have to read the book before you watch the movie, but considering that I couldn't watch the movies because I was travelling, I wanted to at least understand what the story was. So I read this. It was the motivation I needed to pick up Wuthering Heights, and I rated this a 3 stars. It follows our main characters Catherine and Heathcliff throughout their life, from little children into adulthood. It is a sort of tragic, obsessive love story between the two of them. It shows the generational consequences of their romance. It's quite dark, set on the Yorkshire moors. I rated this a 3 stars. I was a bit disappointed. I wanted to love it. I wanted to be able to say that I really enjoyed it. You know, I was also seeing lots of TikToks around the time about people talking about how much they loved Wuthering Heights due to the movie coming out. It just didn't do it for me, and I felt a bit dim. I was like, did I not really understand what was happening? Like, what happened? Why didn't I like it? But I'm glad to have read it. Then I read Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. If you can't tell, I was trying to work my way through the 26 books I wanted to read in 2026 from the ones that were on Kindle Unlimited. I thought that's a good place to start. And I said I wanted to read an Elsie Silver book because everyone raves about her, everyone loves her. I had previously said I'm not much of a romance girl. They don't really do it for me. I like my romance typically within a fantasy. I like there being more to it, higher stakes, more escapism than just regular romance. It's just a bit bland for me. I wanted to give Elsie Silver a go because I know everyone raved about her and I didn't know where to start. I looked up where to start. It was with Off to the Races. I rated this book a 2 stars. It follows our FMC. She's a horse trainer and she's been hired to break in this really difficult horse, and she falls in love with the owner of the ranch, basically. I just found it to be really dull. Like, it just didn't excite me in any way. It was a quick read, it was an easy read, probably a good palate cleanser. Maybe I'll pick her books up again if I need like a clean slate after a 5-star, 6-star book. Just kind of a very mid book. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't good. I'm kind of on a bit of a bad rated book streak at this point, and that continues with my next book, which was The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. It follows the story of 4 sisters and they kill themselves, and it's the story of the story that leads up to their suicides, and it's told by outsiders. It's told by this group of boys who are just utterly obsessed with them. They put the girls on a pedestal. They think they are these like angels, these sort of otherworldly beings. But it's just kind of weird, like, and it's intentionally weird. I get that. You know, there's a portion of the book where one guy sneaks into their houses and comes out with, like, I think it's like a bloody tampon, and it's like this, like, wow, like, they bleed sort of thing, and it's just, it's weird. And I think that is the point. I think perhaps I just don't think critically enough to analyse this book and understand all the themes and the meanings behind it. Maybe that's why I didn't get it, because I did expect big things. I did expect to kind of be revolutionised by this book, and it just kind of fell flat for me. But I think that might be a skill issue on my part. Next, I read Harry Potter, the first book, which I'm really annoyed with myself that I read this, because I always do this. I've read the start of the Harry Potter series so many times, and I haven't read the end books as many times because I never commit to the full reading. And so the first books I can basically recite word by word. I've read it a bit too many times, I'm a bit too used to it. And the last books I don't read, and I wouldn't just pick it up halfway through the series. What I was really craving, I realised, was the next book I read. I realised halfway through that what I really wanted wasn't this, but was the next book that I read. And so I sort of committed to reading the book, and then realised I'm not actually going to commit to the whole read of the series, which I wouldn't have done anyway, because obviously it's like a 7-book series and they're big and they're chunky, and it would have taken up a lot of my reading. But at the time I was just craving the Harry Potter world, so it is a 5-star book. I don't think any of the books will ever be rated not 5 stars for me, even though I might not actually like critically rate them a 5 stars. It's just they're too much a part of my childhood. We don't condone J.K. Rowling here though, do not fret. Next, I read All the Young Dudes by Miss King Bean, 89. Oh my god, 1,419 pages of heaven. No, of torture. This is the Marauders fanfic. If you've ever heard of fan fiction within the Harry Potter world, if you've ever heard of the Marauders, you will have heard of All the Young Dudes. It is a fan fiction that chronicles the Marauders' timeline from their first year at Hogwarts to the First Wizarding War, and actually through till the Second Wizarding War, but not everyone makes it, of course. 1,491, not 19 pages. I read this kind of in a panic because there's a rumour that it's being auctioned off and it was going to be traditionally published, which means the original fan fiction will have to be removed everywhere. Onto the actual book. Words cannot describe this book. I will try my best to convey the experience I had while reading this and the feelings that I felt, but all I can say is, please, if you are remotely interested in Harry Potter, please read this fan fiction. It is so good, so good. A big thing for me was it feels like you're reading, it doesn't feel like fan fiction because it is so sort of book accurate, knowledge specific, down to the classes, the homework, the spells, the lessons, the places. Like, it's all so, it literally feels like a continuation of the books. It is beautifully written. The quotes in this book are devastating, absolutely devastating. In fact, I might devastate myself some more by just picking a few quotes to read to you. I think one great thing about this is that I can't even really spoil it for you, because if you know the books, you know the Marauders plotline, and it is canon, apart from the only thing that isn't canon is Lupin's sort of background. It is a Wolfstar fan fiction. Loved it. The only thing I didn't love is not the Wolfstar, but just the fact it had to be canon, like book canon at the end. I don't like that Remus had to end up with Tonks. You get to the end of the 7 years at Hogwarts. If you want to keep your peace, don't read on. That 7 years is like being in a bubble, a happy little bubble. Not always happy, but it just has that youthful spirit, just the charm, the whimsy, just like the magic of being young. The sort of feelings of just being a teenager and growing up, and just that high school naivety, you know, you don't have to worry about what's going on in the world. And then you get to the war, and I mean, it's not a spoiler, is it? Lily and James Potter are killed. Sirius goes to prison, Peter is presumed dead, and Remus is all alone. Ouch, ouch, I actually deeped it so much. I was like, that is awful, that is terrible, that is like so awful. I sound like I'm laughing, I'm really not inside, like that is terrible. The years of Remus being by himself and then the reunion with Sirius, it's just, you just get this like, your heart just sinks, you know, that just awful feeling you get, sort of I suppose it's kind of like a sense of grief almost. You just like that heaviness in your heart. Let me read you some of my quotes. One of the last. For years and years afterwards, once the agony of all those funerals and obituaries and memorials and speeches had faded, Remus would be left with memories of his last months at Hogwarts, when they had been stupid and naive and indescribably happy without even knowing it. After reading All the Young Dudes, as one does when they read a 5-6 star book, I got put into a bit of a reading slump. I couldn't pick up another book. I didn't want to. I didn't want to read, quite frankly. I was like, I just have to sit and ruminate on the book I just read. I couldn't pick up another book because nothing was right. And actually the book that got me out of this reading slump was How America Works and Why It Doesn't by William Cooper, which is a political book. Probably exactly what I needed, a good non-fiction, nothing similar to All the Young Dudes in the slightest. Rated it a 3.5 stars. It was interesting, it was easy, it was digestible, it was comprehensible, and it was surprisingly what I needed. It goes over the American government, how it works, sort of 3 sections, how they work, analyses the issues with America and the political system as we're seeing it today, things like tribalism, polarization, social media. Those are like the 3 main things that William Cooper argues is ruining the political system. He's very central, which I did enjoy. I mean, more left-leaning. Like, he definitely criticises the right far more than he criticises the left. But I liked that he took a central line. It felt decently unbiased. I don't really think you can kind of get an unbiased book in today's day and age due to, I mean, the reasons he argues. The next book I read was Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. Rorick. I rated this a 4.25 stars. This, I saw a video on my For You page like months ago. It was just like a simple TikTok, like, I have to go to work and I can't put this book down. And I saved it, and then I just went back to it one day and I was like, yeah, I'll give that a go. I haven't heard anyone talk about it other than this one TikTok. And it was a really good book. It follows our main character, Scarlet. She is an assassin. It's very Throne of Glass themed, but I think truly if you've just finished Throne of Glass, or if you've been craving something that is Throne of Glass and you've been struggling to find it, I would really recommend this book because it does have so many of those elements, but it is a different story. Like, it's not completely copy and paste, but it has enough of those elements. You know, it's got the assassin, our main character is trained to be an assassin, and there's like the crime den, there's magic, so it does have those prime fantasy aspects. So we follow our main character, Scarlet, who is an assassin, but she's actually kind of on leave. She's refusing to work anymore, and she has been cast away, and she's living in this noble household. She's been given this new job and she's refusing to do it. The first book is quite stationary, I would say. That doesn't really sound like much of a storyline, but it does fill out. I had such steam reading this book. I read it so fast. I really enjoyed it, but it didn't quite have that 5-star feeling. Like, it was just something missing. Then I read 1984 by George Orwell. Another good find. Me and my best friend had been talking about 1984 and how we wanted to read it, and again we just found it in this book swap. It was an absolutely decrepit version of this book. It was falling apart. I had to not sellotape it, I had to like stick it together with plasters. It was like the cover was falling off the book. It was a right tatter. Follow our main character, and he's living in this autocracy ruled by the party, headed by Big Brother. It's dystopian. It was written in the 1950s, so it was like a futuristic book at the time. Our main character, he works for the party, he's a party member. His job is rewriting history to correlate with the lies the party is telling. It's not eerily similar to a modern day. Like, that's, I thought, perhaps a bit dramatic. I think what it is the fact that you can so easily see how an autocracy could be created. George Orwell really hits the nail on the head with the tools and the mechanisms that would be used to create this dictatorship. Controlling the minds, the language, how important language is, how important education is, memory, like, what good is having a memory of a previous world if you have no way to prove that it ever existed? You know, the fact that they change the past, so there's no truth in the past, there's no truth in history. The only thing I'd say, I rate this a 4 stars. Really interesting, obviously quite gloomy, not a positive book, but the ending was not what I thought it would be. I'm sure probably quite a lot of people expected it to go the same way as I did, which is not the way it panned out. And I was a bit disappointed at first. Towards the end of the book, I was thinking, we don't have enough pages left to wrap it up how I'm expecting it to be wrapped up, and it doesn't wrap up that way. So it's a bit disappointing at first, but after ruminating on it, it does feel very intentional. I feel like that's kind of half the point. Then I read Lady of Shadows, which is the second book in the Lady of Darkness series. Again, I gave this a 4.25 stars. Here is my notes from what I wrote about Lady of Shadows. We are now fully in the magical fae world. I did sort of lose steam reading this at the start. I kind of became a little bit disillusioned with it. There is a love triangle in this book, and I hated it. I hated it, especially at the beginning. Both corners of the love triangle are being so possessive over our FMC, and I hated it. I hated it. I found it really, really gross. I didn't like it. I don't like the possessiveness. It wasn't nice. It was just awkward. It was cringy. It was just like, oh, like, no. too soon. Neither of them even have her yet. Chill out. Testosterone levels need to lower. Too much. I did like the eventual slow burn when the romance sort of separates off. I don't like when it's too rushed, because I don't really like when they get together after that. It's a bit boring. It was breadcrumbed enough that it was still interested. You were still invested in the romance. Without any context, Callan was so annoying in this book. That's all I'm gonna say. I loved Callan in the first book. Really loved him. In this book, he was so annoying. I really liked all the twists and turns in this book with the plot. I can't say I really understand what is going on with like the history and the revelations we're having about it, but like I was still interested in all of the plot developments. I can't explain to you what the history is of the world, like what we're understanding, but like it's still interesting. Does that make sense? And then I did literally after the 50% mark, I did pick back up steam. Not the best that I had to wait until the 50% mark, that is why it gets to 4.25 stars, but at least I did pick it back up. And another sort of slight con is that it is sometimes a little cringe. Next book I read was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Second book of my 4 classics. Done, 50% of the way there. Aiming for 1 every quarter of the year. Really enjoyed this book. Really enjoyed it. Thank God. I thought I wasn't gonna enjoy classics. I didn't think they were for me, but this proved that it was. It was for me. I read this differently, which I really enjoyed. I immersively read this, so I had the audiobook playing and I was physically reading this, and I think that is going to be my approach to reading classics in the future. It really helped. It takes off the stress of having to understand everything, like reading it and having to sort of process what you're actually reading, but also just listening to it. I can get a bit distracted just listening to audiobooks, so the combination was really helpful. I really enjoyed that. This book follows Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. It's their romance, their love story. It's really good. I rated it 4.5 stars. It's funny, it's shocking, it's dramaful. There are twists, there are turns. It's literally like Bridgerton, I feel. It is a slow burn. You don't get the romance until kind of like the end of the book, but the drama, the gossip, it's enough to keep you going. My notes from this book: a man that yearns is all I've put. A man that yearns. The OG enemies to lovers. Mr. Darcy's redemption, done really well. At first you don't like him, and the redemption is very well done. Oh, I don't like the fact that his first name is Fitzwilliam. Or like Fitzgerald or something. Fitzwilliam. I didn't like that. I'm glad we mainly refer to him as Darcy, because I didn't like that. I liked all the small, witty, sort of sarcastic moments with the humour, especially like the family between Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Bennet. I think that was quite funny. It's quite well done. Just Mrs. Bennet in general, she's quite a funny character. Very scheming. I'm so happy that I actually liked a classic. That was really exciting. And finally, the final book that I read whilst travelling was The Deal by Elle Kennedy. Everyone has seen the new off-campus series that has recently been released, and it was all over my For You page. I wanted to read the book before I watched the series, and so luckily The Deal was on Kindle Unlimited, so I read it, literally devoured it in a day. I did enjoy this. I'd rate it about a 3.75, I think I went for. It was entertaining. It was good. It was an easy read. I read it in about a day, but it wasn't anything revolutionary. It follows our main character Hannah and her romance with this hockey player, star, captain Garrett Graham at a university. The off-campus series is 5 books and it follows different teammates of the hockey team. It's a hockey romance. Elle Kennedy has this big universe. I think there's off-campus series, there's the Bry U series, I think, and then it goes on to these characters' children. On and on and on. I think it's huge. It's a huge series. And I did enjoy it. I wasn't really expecting to. It is a romance, so I was thinking, oh, I'm not gonna really love it, but it was good. It was entertaining. It was fun. It was a little bit cringe. There were some things I didn't love about it. She kept calling him dude, and I hated that. And he like loved it. He was like, Yeah, she calls me dude. The premise of the book, it's a fake dating trope to make a guy jealous, and in return for fake dating to make this guy jealous, Hannah agrees to tutor Garrett for a class that he failed, and then it turns into a romance. So I read this book to watch the series. Didn't realise the series was going to also include Dean's book, which is the third book, Dean and Ally. Oh my gosh, as soon as they became a plot point, I didn't care about anything else. So I really want to read their book, which is the third book, but I'm going to read it chronologically, and I'm going to read the second book first. So I have both books reserved from the library. Hopefully they come in soon. Those are all the books that I read while travelling. We had 4 5-star reads, 6 4 and above star reads, 4 3-star reads, 3 2-star reads. I would say that was pretty good reading. I got through a good chunk of the 26 books I want to read in 2026, so that was good work. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'm so happy to be back. I've got lots of video ideas planned, and I just can't wait to be back and posting on this channel. I hope you guys forgive me for being absent for the past 5 months, and I hope I can make it up to you guys. And with that, I will say goodbye, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.